Welcome to Alta Survival. In this series, we're going to cover the top 10 considerations for bunkering in. These are things that you need to consider that aren't talked about as much as other topics dealing with bunkering in. Here's a quick glance at the outline for this series. First of all, what is bunkering in and what is its purpose? Why do we talk about it? Let's talk about bunkering in versus bugging out. Bunkering in should be your main priority during a societal collapse and for most emergency events, unless you live in a highly populated urban area and you need to get out. We're going to talk a little bit about bugging out also and some of the reasons that you might choose to bug out. So what is bunkering in? It means that you have enough supplies at your home or your alternate location to ride out some kind of event. It could be a natural disaster, a politically motivated uprising, a long-term power outage, or any number of potential disasters. If you're not sure you understand what bunkering in is and the why behind it, or if you just want an explanation to share with someone who may not understand it, please pay close attention for the next 2 to 3 minutes before we move on to the rest of the list. Most of us currently live with many modern conveniences. For me, having the ability to pivot and continue living day to day without those conveniences is what being prepared is all about. This is why having a plan is so important. What are you going to pivot to? Like we've talked about with the recent pandemic, a lot of people were caught off guard and ran to buy toilet paper and a lot of other things just to get through a period of unknowns. That was their preparedness plan. They had nothing else to pivot to. Essentially, their plan for a crisis was to start working at that moment. When a crisis begins, the time for preparation has passed. If you want to avoid the fear of not being prepared for a crisis, then get started preparing now and continue to prepare. If we find ourselves scrambling at the onset of a crisis for food and other consumables, to me, that indicates that at least in some aspect, we're not fully prepared. I think a crisis is like a lot of other opportunities. They come unexpectedly, leaving little or no time for last-minute planning. Whatever the crisis or natural catastrophe is, you can never have everything that you would possibly need for the rest of your life. What we're doing, in the best case scenario, is buying ourselves some time until things get back to something that we recognize as normal, or in the more challenging long-term scenario, where it buys us enough time where we can plant and harvest a crop significant enough to live on for the long term. We're also relieving ourselves of enough pressure and tension so we can make better and rational decisions during this period. Planning and preparing alleviates some of the fear and panic that come with the unknown. If you lack sufficient food and supplies to live on, and they're suddenly unavailable to purchase, the natural reaction is to panic, and you're going to make poor decisions out of desperation. So whether you prep for 1 month or 1 year, as compared to being completely self-sufficient, you're ultimately buying yourself some additional time. Let me share some hope with you. It's never too late to start. Ask yourself this question: how long could my household survive if we had to bunker in? If the answer makes you feel woefully unprepared, then at least start with a plan to buy a few extra cans of food each time you go to the store. If you have the resources, look into food and other resources that can be stored long term. I'll leave a link to some of those that you can check out to do your own research. So let's just do a quick recap of what we've covered so far. A, you need a plan to be more prepared. B, being prepared helps keep you alive, helps you make better decisions in a crisis, and buys you some time. C, it's not too late to start preparing. How does this differ from your definition of bunkering in? Let me know in the comments. And also, does this change anything about how you think about bunkering in? Number 2 is how to avoid being a target. As you're prepping, first of all, keep it to yourself. In a grid down situation, any neighbors that aren't preparedness minded could become a huge threat to you and your family, because they'll be underprepared or not prepared at all. This applies to anyone who sees that you're doing well while other people are struggling. In a desperate situation, many people will turn to theft and even violence to get what they need to survive. Now, you should absolutely share your preparedness plan with your neighbors that are interested and really want to prepare, but keep the details of your inventory to yourself. People that you can trust, who are responsible, freedom-minded, and have good morals, those are the kinds of people that you're going to want to help to prepare and work with. I'd love to share this with everyone, but the truth is, not everyone wants it, and you can't make them want it. In addition to not verbalizing the details of your inventory, don't allow your preps to be visible to others. Whether it's a generator, solar panels, a rain catchment system, these things show that you have a higher level of preparedness. This also applies to transferring groceries from your vehicle to your house. If you don't have an enclosed garage to unload from, consider your timing or unload after dark. If it's your usual weekly trip to the grocery store, it's probably not a big deal. But if it's a more significant haul from Costco or Sam's, you could draw some unwanted attention. There have been times that I bought a pallet or two of the number 10 cans of various food items. In retrospect, I can see that it was a mistake to leave my truck parked in the driveway in the middle of the day for everyone else to see, even if it's just for a short time. Next time I'll cover the pallet before I transport it. If you have water barrels in your garage that could be seen from the street, I suggest covering them with a tarp or a sheet. People may or may not ask questions about what they see at that time, but later, down the road when they need survival items, they're likely to remember what they saw. I've also seen instances in certain cities where the government has tried to force homeowners to eliminate their family gardens, which makes it even more important to only share information with people you trust. Even if you live in a rural area with no neighbors close by, keep your preps guarded so that visiting neighbors or the occasional repair guy doesn't make a note of it. This will help you avoid becoming a target. The second part to avoid being a target is your appearance, or ways to be less noticeable. I didn't plan on going into much detail here, but there are several points that are important to consider. These are ways for you to be less noticeable when in public. In a survival situation, appearing too well-fed, well-dressed, or strong can make you a prime target for desperate individuals or hostile groups. On the other hand, blending in and looking like everyone else that are struggling is the best defense. The next few things I want to cover are things that you'll want to plan out in advance, because when you find yourself in this kind of dilemma, it'll be difficult for you to think about much more than survival if you don't already have a plan. The first one may be difficult to control, but please don't write it off. Avoid a well-fed appearance. Eat what you need to survive, but there could be a disadvantage to appearing too well-fed. This goes to rationing your food. Don't necessarily eat until you're full. Eat what you need to survive. Prioritize nutrition over the quantity of food. Focus on balanced meals with carbohydrates for energy, protein for muscle maintenance, and fats to sustain long-term energy. Ensure that vitamins and minerals are included to prevent deficiencies. You may not need to ration food, but it will be important to implement a strict meal plan for several reasons. Divide food into daily portions to avoid overeating in the early stages. Set specific meal times to help control the amount of food consumption and to maintain energy. You'll also need to account for different dietary necessities for children, the elderly, and for pregnant women. Some of us may feel like we can skip a meal or two initially. Realize that in a grid down situation, you'll be working harder without many of the conveniences of modern life. You'll be hauling water, fortifying your home, making repairs, splitting wood, and burning more calories than you usually do. When it's time to sit down for a meal, you're likely to be pretty darn hungry. This is why it's important to stick to pre-planned portions and consistent meal times. You're likely to lose some weight, but so is everyone else. Now, the other one I mentioned is avoiding a well-kept appearance. What's the danger with a neat and orderly appearance? A well-kept appearance can make you a highly visible target in a lot of ways. So let me give you 5 different ways to reduce that target on your back. Number 1, avoid becoming a target for desperate people. If you look clean, well-fed, and well-groomed, it signals to others that you might have resources like food, water, hygiene products, shelter, and security. Desperate people may follow you, rob you, or attack you to take what they'll assume that you have. Number 2 is blending in with the crowd. This is also referred to as a gray man strategy. In a post-collapse world, most people will be dirty, exhausted, and struggling. Looking too clean or healthy makes you stand out, which is dangerous. So a slightly disheveled look will help you blend in, making others believe that you're struggling just like them. Reducing interest from gangs, raiders, or other hostile groups. Hostile groups may target individuals who appear strong, well-equipped, or capable. If you look too fit, clean, or tactical, you may be seen as a threat or as a valuable asset that they can capture. Preventing scrutiny from government or other authorities. If martial law or forced evacuations occur, looking too prepared might result in being detained or questioned. Authorities could assume that you're hoarding supplies, leading to confiscation. Number 5, conceal your strength and skills. Appearing weak, sick, or harmless can cause you to be perceived as less of a threat. This gives you the element of surprise if you need to defend yourself. During a societal collapse, maintaining a low profile in public is crucial for survival. I'll mention a few of the ways to do that, but you can see even more on our website under Considerations for Bunkering In. How to achieve a low profile look. Wear worn out, slightly dirty clothes, not ragged enough to look homeless, but not pristine. For men, grow some facial hair or just keep your hair slightly unkempt. Walk with a slightly tired or defeated posture. Don't move with too much confidence. Don't wear expensive or bright colored clothing. When possible, use the side streets. Stay away from main roads where people may be looting and rioting. Avoid forming patterns in your behavior. Change your routes, your routines, so that no one can track or anticipate your movements. Also, be polite but vague. If someone asks where you're going, keep your answers general. Let's recap this. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, in a survival situation, appearing too well-fed, well-dressed, or strong can make you a prime target for desperate and hostile individuals. Blending in and looking like everyone else who are also struggling is the best defense. I don't love the expression gray man, only because to some people it implies that they're invisible, and others focus too much on achieving a certain look rather than looking ordinary. There will usually be some reason that a person sees you or remembers seeing you. Your goal is to reduce that as much as possible. In other words, focus on staying less noticeable in public by appearing unimportant and unmemorable. Please take just a moment and put in the comments something that you believe would help you to stay less noticeable or less visible while in public. If you feel like you got something from this video, please help us grow by taking a minute to like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment. That really helps us to continue to be able to produce more content. Now let's continue with part 2 of this series in this video. In the meantime, be vigilant and stay ready.